She's nothing but a fat wallet with legs. Once I get control of the company, I'll dump her like yesterday's garbage." Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I stood frozen behind the oak door of the groomsman's suite, my hand still raised to knock, my heart shattering into a million pieces. That was my future son-in-law talking about my daughter, my Sophie, my only child. Let me take you back to that morning. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The Texas sun was painting the hill country in shades of gold as I drove up to the vineyard where my daughter was about to marry the man she loved. Or the man she thought she loved. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I built Harrison Construction from nothing. Started with a pickup truck and a toolbox when I was 23. Now, 40 years later, we're one of the largest commercial construction companies in Texas. 300 employees. Contracts worth hundreds of millions. And my daughter Sophie was set to inherit it all. Sophie had met Derek at a charity gala 2 years ago. He was a financial advisor at a prestigious firm in Austin. Charming, well-dressed. He knew exactly what to say and when to say it. He drove a Mercedes, wore a Rolex, and had a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. I never liked him. Call it a father's instinct. Call it paranoia. But something about the way he looked at Sophie always bothered me. It wasn't the way a man looks at the woman he loves. It was the way a wolf looks at a lamb. But Sophie was head over heels. And what could I do? She was 29 years old. A grown woman. She had her degree in business, worked alongside me at the company, and had a good head on her shoulders. If she chose Derek, I had to trust her judgment, even when that judgment felt terribly wrong. The wedding was at Willow Creek Vineyard, a stunning property with rolling hills and endless rows of grapevines. Sophie had dreamed of getting married there since she was a little girl. I spared no expense. 300 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, flowers flown in from Holland. It cost me close to $500,000, but I would have paid 10 times that to see my daughter happy. That morning, I woke up at 5, couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her mother, my late wife Rebecca, who passed away when Sophie was 15. Breast cancer. She fought it for 3 years before it took her. Rebecca would have loved this day. She would have fussed over Sophie's dress, cried during the ceremony, and danced until her feet hurt at the reception. Instead, I was doing this alone, father of the bride, mother of the bride, everything at once. I arrived at the vineyard around 8. The wedding wasn't until 4, but there was so much to do. Coordinate with the caterers. Check on the flowers. Make sure the orchestra knew the playlist. Sophie was in the bridal suite with her bridesmaids, and I didn't want to disturb her. Around 10, I decided to check on Derek. I wanted to have a man-to-man talk with him, nothing threatening. Just a father letting his future son-in-law know that Sophie was precious to me, and I expected him to treat her like a queen. The groomsman's suite was in a separate building, a converted barn with exposed beams and leather furniture. I walked up the stone path, rehearsing what I was going to say. Something about honor, respect, the responsibility of marriage. I never got to say any of it. As I approached the door, I heard laughter. Loud, obnoxious laughter. I recognized Derek's voice immediately, and then I heard him speak those words that would change everything. She's nothing but a fat wallet with legs. Once I get control of the company, I'll dump her like yesterday's garbage. More laughter. Someone else spoke. I think it was his best man, Tyler. Dude, you're savage. But seriously, how are you going to pull it off? Derek's voice again, dripping with arrogance. Easy. Sophie's already added me to the business accounts. She trusts me completely. The old man's been grooming her to take over the company, and she's been grooming me to take it from her. By this time next year, I'll have controlling interest in Harrison Construction, and Sophie will be out on her ass. What about the prenup? Derek laughed. What prenup? I convinced her not to get one, told her it showed a lack of trust. She ate it up like candy. Her father wanted one, but Sophie shut him down, said she believed in true love. His voice turned mocking. True love. What a joke. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a hydraulic press. This man, this snake, was planning to steal my company, to use my daughter, to destroy everything I had built. I wanted to burst through that door and beat him senseless. I wanted to drag him out by his collar and throw him off the property. But something stopped me. If I confronted him now, he would deny everything. He would twist it around, make me look like the crazy, overprotective father. Sophie would take his side. She always did. No, I needed to be smart about this. I needed evidence. I needed to catch him in a way he couldn't escape. I stepped back from the door, my mind racing. The wedding was in 6 hours. 6 hours to figure out how to protect my daughter from the biggest mistake of her life. I spent the next hour pretending everything was fine. I smiled. I shook hands. I posed for photos. But inside, I was dying. Every time I looked at Derek, I saw a predator wearing a tuxedo. Every time I looked at Sophie, I saw my little girl about to walk into a trap. I pulled aside my oldest friend, a man named Walter, who had been my lawyer for 30 years. I told him what I had heard. His face went pale. "Richard, are you absolutely sure?" "I heard it with my own ears, Walt. Clear as day." Walter rubbed his temples. "This is bad. If what he's saying is true, and Sophie has already given him access to company accounts, he could do serious damage. What do I do? Do I stop the wedding?" Walter shook his head slowly. "If you stop it now, without proof, Sophie will never forgive you. She'll think you're making it up because you never liked him. So what? I just let her marry this con artist? We need to think strategically. Right now, he's just talking. He hasn't actually done anything illegal yet. If we expose him too early, he'll claim it was just locker room talk. We need to catch him in the act." I stared at my friend, my heart breaking. "You're telling me to let my daughter marry a man who wants to destroy her?" Walter put his hand on my shoulder. "I'm telling you to be patient. Give him enough rope to hang himself. And when he makes his move, we'll be ready." It was the hardest decision I ever made. But Walter was right. If I confronted Derek now, I would lose Sophie forever. She was too in love to see the truth. I needed to show her the truth in a way she couldn't deny. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophie walked down the aisle on my arm, radiant and white, her mother's pearls around her neck. I kissed her cheek and handed her over to Derek, and it took every ounce of willpower I had not to punch him in his smiling face. The minister spoke about love and commitment. Derek recited his vows, his voice smooth and sincere. If I hadn't heard what he said earlier, I would have believed every word. He was that good. When the minister asked if anyone objected, I kept my mouth shut. Walter was right. This wasn't the time. But I swore to myself that Derek would pay for what he was planning. He just didn't know it yet. The reception was torture. I gave my speech, talked about how proud I was of Sophie, how I knew Derek would take care of her. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Derek hugged me afterward, thanked me for welcoming him into the family. I wanted to vomit. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in my study with a glass of whiskey. I looked at a photo of Rebecca on my desk. She was holding Sophie as a baby, both of them laughing at something off camera. "I'm going to protect her," I said to the photo. "I promise you, I'm going to protect our girl." The next morning, I went to work. I called an emergency meeting with my CFO, a sharp woman named Patricia who had been with the company for 20 years. I told her what I had heard. Patricia's face hardened. "That son of a bitch. I need you to audit everything. Every account Sophie has access to. Every transaction in the last 6 months. If Derek has been moving money, I want to know about it. I'll start immediately. And Patricia, keep this between us. I don't want Sophie to know. Not yet." The audit took 3 weeks. What Patricia found made my blood run cold. Derek had convinced Sophie to add him as a signatory on multiple company accounts. He had already moved $200,000 into a separate account under his name, claiming it was for investment purposes. He had also persuaded Sophie to sign a document giving him power of attorney over her shares in the company. Power of attorney over a 30% stake in Harrison Construction, worth approximately $90 million. Sophie didn't even realize what she had signed. Derek had buried it in a stack of paperwork related to their joint finances. She trusted him completely, so she signed where he told her to sign. I sat in my office, staring at the documents Patricia had compiled. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. This wasn't just about money. This was about my daughter's future, her dignity, her heart. Derek was going to take everything from her and throw her away like garbage. His own words. I called Walter. We have enough? More than enough. But Richard, we need to be careful. If we go to the police now, Derek might claim Sophie gave him permission for everything. We need to document his intent to defraud. We need to catch him admitting his plan. How do we do that? Walter smiled. I have an idea. Over the next month, I laid my trap. I pretended everything was normal. I had dinner with Sophie and Derek every Sunday. I talked about retiring, about handing over the company to Sophie. I watched Derek's eyes light up every time I mentioned it. Meanwhile, Walter worked with a private investigator to dig into Derek's past. What we found was disturbing. Derek had been married once before, to a woman in Florida. She came from money too. They divorced after 2 years, and she lost almost everything in the settlement. Derek's lawyer had somehow convinced the judge that she was mentally unstable. The investigator tracked her down. Her name was Caroline. She was living in a small apartment in Tampa, working as a waitress. She had gone from a millionaire's daughter to barely scraping by, all because of Derek. She agreed to talk to us. What she told me confirmed my worst fears. He's a predator, Caroline said, her voice shaking. He finds wealthy women, makes them fall in love with him, isolates them from their families, and then takes everything. By the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. How did he get away with it? He's smart. He never does anything illegal, not technically. He manipulates you into giving him everything willingly, and if you try to fight back, he has lawyers who will destroy you. Did you try to warn anyone? Caroline laughed bitterly. Who would believe me? I was the crazy ex-wife. That's what he made me look like. I thanked her and promised that Derek would face justice. She didn't believe me, but I was going to prove her wrong. The trap was set for a Sunday dinner at my house. I had installed hidden cameras in the study. Walter had prepared a fake document about the company's future, one that would tempt Derek into revealing his true intentions. Sophie and Derek arrived at 6. Sophie looked tired. She had been quiet lately, withdrawn. I suspected Derek was already working on isolating her. After dinner, I asked Derek to join me in the study. I wanted to discuss something important about the company. Derek's eyes gleamed. Of course, Dad. Dad. He had started calling me that after the wedding. It made my skin crawl. In the study, I handed him the fake document. It outlined a plan to accelerate Sophie's takeover of the company, giving her full control within 6 months. Derek read it carefully, his expression neutral. This is interesting, he said. But don't you think 6 months is too fast? Sophie might not be ready. What do you mean? Derek leaned back, his mask slipping slightly. Well, running a company this size takes experience. Maybe you should consider bringing in a partner for her, someone who understands finance. Someone like you? Derek smiled. I'm just trying to help. I nodded slowly. Derek, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Of course. Do you love my daughter? Derek didn't hesitate. More than anything in the world. Then why did you call her a fat wallet with legs on your wedding day? The color drained from Derek's face. For a moment, he was speechless. Then his expression shifted, the charming mask crumbling to reveal the predator underneath. You heard that? Every word. Derek stood up, his jaw tight. Look, Richard, I don't know what you think you heard, but I heard you say you were going to take control of my company and dump Sophie like yesterday's garbage. I heard your friend Tyler ask about the prenup, and I heard you brag about convincing Sophie not to get one. Derek's eyes darted around the room. He was calculating, trying to figure out how to spin this. That was just talk, guys joking around. It didn't mean anything. So, the $200,000 you moved into your personal account was just a joke? The power of attorney you tricked Sophie into signing was just locker room talk? Derek went pale. He realized I knew everything. Richard, let's talk about this calmly. We're family now. We can work something out. We're not family. You're a con artist who married my daughter to steal my company, and I'm going to make sure you pay for it. Derek's demeanor changed. The charm disappeared completely. replaced by cold calculation. You can't prove anything. Everything Sophie signed, she signed willingly. I didn't force her. I didn't threaten her. In the eyes of the law, she gave me those rights. Maybe, but the law also frowns on fraud. And when Caroline testifies about what you did to her, I think a jury will see a pattern. The mention of Caroline hit Derek like a physical blow. Caroline? You talked to Caroline? She told me everything. How you destroyed her life. How you manipulated the courts. How you made her look crazy so no one would believe her. Derek's face twisted with anger. That bitch ruined herself. I didn't do anything to her. That's not what the evidence shows. Before Derek could respond, the door opened. Sophie stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She had been listening through the intercom I had connected to the hidden cameras. Sophie. Derek's voice shifted instantly, soft and concerned. Baby, whatever your father told you, it's not true. He's trying to break us up because he never liked me. Sophie stared at him, her eyes red and swollen. I heard you, Derek, just now. I heard you call me a fat wallet with legs. I heard you admit to taking money. I heard everything. Sophie, please, you have to understand. Understand what? That our entire marriage is a lie? That you never loved me? That I was just a means to an end? Derek tried to approach her, but Sophie stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Sophie, be reasonable. We can work through this. Work through this? Sophie's voice cracked. You were going to destroy me. You were going to take everything my father built, everything my mother and I dreamed about, and throw me away like garbage. For the first time, Derek had nothing to say. His silver tongue had finally failed him. Walter stepped into the room, accompanied by 2 police officers. Derek Mitchell, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. Derek's face went white. This is ridiculous. You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything illegal. One of the officers pulled out handcuffs. Tell it to the judge. As they led Derek away, he looked back at Sophie with hatred in his eyes. You'll regret this, both of you. I'll make sure of it. Sophie didn't flinch. She just watched him go, her spine straight, her tears drying on her cheeks. The legal battle that followed was brutal. Derek hired expensive lawyers who tried every trick in the book. They claimed Sophie was mentally unstable. They claimed I had manipulated her. They claimed the evidence was fabricated. But we had the recordings. We had the financial documents. We had Caroline's testimony. And most importantly, we had the truth. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury took only 4 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Derek was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud and conspiracy. Sophie watched the sentencing from the front row. When the judge announced the verdict, she didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She just nodded slowly, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from her shoulders. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Sophie held my hand as we walked to the car. She didn't say a word until we were safely inside. Dad? Yes, sweetheart. Thank you. I squeezed her hand. For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing what I couldn't see. I'm your father. It's my job to protect you. Sophie leaned her head against my shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't listen. When you tried to tell me about the prenup, when you expressed concerns about Derek, I shut you down. I thought you were just being overprotective. You were in love. Love makes us blind sometimes. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid. You trusted someone who didn't deserve your trust. That's not stupidity. That's just being human. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, How did you know? Even before the wedding. How did you know something was wrong? I thought about it. I don't know exactly. Maybe it was the way he looked at you, or the way he always steered conversations toward money, or maybe it was just a father's instinct. But something always felt off. I wish I had listened. What matters is that you're listening now. And you're free. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Thanks to Derek's criminal conviction, Sophie was able to recover most of the money he had stolen. The power of attorney was voided. The company accounts were secured. Sophie threw herself into work. She had always been capable, but now she was driven. She wanted to prove, to herself and to everyone else, that she was more than Derek's victim. She was Richard Harrison's daughter, and she was going to earn her place in the company. I watched her transform over the next year. The sad, withdrawn woman who had left the courthouse became a confident, decisive leader. She closed deals that had stalled for months. She earned the respect of employees who had known her since she was a child. She became the leader I always knew she could be. On her 30th birthday, I took her to dinner at the restaurant where I had proposed to her mother. It was a small Italian place in downtown Austin. Nothing fancy, but full of memories. "I have something for you," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. Sophie opened it and gasped. Inside was a certificate of ownership, transferring 40% of Harrison Construction to her name. "Dad, this is too much." "It's exactly right. You've earned it, every single share." Sophie stared at the document, tears forming in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep making your mother proud." Sophie looked up at me, her face glowing in the candlelight. "I'll try, every day." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Sophie, there's something I want you to know. When I heard Derek say those things on your wedding day, I felt like my heart had been ripped out. But I also felt something else. Determination. I swore to myself and to your mother that I would protect you, no matter what. And you did. But you also protected yourself. When it mattered most, when you had to choose between believing a comfortable lie and facing a painful truth, you chose the truth. That took courage." Sophie squeezed my hand. "I had a good teacher." We finished dinner and walked to the parking lot. The night was warm, the sky full of stars. Sophie stopped and looked up, her face peaceful. "Dad?" "Yes? Do you think Mom would be proud of me?" I looked at my daughter, standing tall and strong under the Texas stars, and I felt Rebecca's presence all around us. She was always proud of you, from the moment you were born to the moment she left us. And wherever she is now, she's looking down at you and smiling. Sophie smiled too. I like to think she's watching. She is. Trust me. She always is. We got in the car and drove home. Sophie was quiet, but it wasn't the sad silence of before. It was the peaceful silence of someone who had been through fire and emerged stronger. 6 months later, I officially retired. Sophie took over as CEO of Harrison Construction. The announcement was covered by every business publication in Texas. They called her the youngest female CEO in the state's construction industry. They talked about her vision, her leadership, her determination. What they didn't know was the story behind it all, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the long road to justice. But that story didn't need to be told. What mattered was that Sophie had survived. She had thrived. She had become the woman her mother and I always knew she could be. I still go to the office sometimes. Not to work, just to visit. I like watching Sophie in action. She runs meetings with confidence. She negotiates deals with skill. She treats every employee with respect. She's better at this than I ever was. Last week I ran into Tyler at a grocery store, Derek's former best man. He looked different now, older, humbler. He saw me and froze, clearly expecting anger. Instead, I just nodded and walked past. I didn't have any anger left. Derek was in prison, Sophie was thriving, justice had been served. There was nothing more to say. Sometimes I think about that morning at the vineyard, that moment when I heard Derek's true intentions through the door. If I had knocked a minute earlier or arrived a minute later, I never would have heard it. Sophie might still be married to that monster. Everything we built might be gone. But I did hear it, and because I heard it, I was able to save my daughter. Call it luck. Call it fate. Call it a father's intuition guiding him to the right place at the right time. I call it Rebecca, watching over us, protecting our family, making sure the truth came out. Every night before I go to sleep, I look at her photo on my bedside table. I tell her about my day, about Sophie, about the company, about how much I miss her. And sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet and the wind rustles through the oak trees outside my window, I swear I can hear her voice. "You did good, Richard. You protected our girl." I did, and I would do it again, 1,000 times over, because that's what fathers do. We fight for our children. We protect them from wolves in sheep's clothing. We stand guard even when they don't want us to, even when they push us away. Derek thought he was going to get away with it. He thought his charm and his lawyers and his schemes would protect him. He thought he could walk into my family, steal my daughter's heart, and walk away with everything. He was wrong. He underestimated a father's love, and that was his biggest mistake. If you're watching this and you recognize something in this story, if someone in your life seems too good to be true, if your gut is telling you something is wrong, trust yourself. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let charm and smooth words blind you to the truth. And if you're a parent, never stop fighting for your children, even when they don't understand, even when they push you away. Your love is their greatest protection. Derek is still in prison. He has 3 more years on his sentence. When he gets out, he'll have nothing. No money, no connections, no future victims who don't know what he really is. Sophie is engaged again. His name is Michael. He's a veterinarian from Austin, kind eyes, gentle soul. Loves animals almost as much as he loves my daughter. This time, I approve. This time, it's real. And this time, there will be a prenup. Sophie insisted on it herself. That's my story. A father's fight to save his daughter from a predator. A con man brought to justice. A family that survived the worst and came out stronger. Some people might call it revenge. I call it protection. Because at the end of the day, there's no greater force on earth than a parent's love. It moves mountains. It exposes lies. It brings justice to those who deserve it. And it never, ever gives up. Thank you for listening. May God bless you and your family. And may you never have to face what we faced. But if you do, remember this. The truth always wins. Love always wins. Justice always wins. It just takes time. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to Obsidian Vengeance for more true stories of redemption and justice. And if you have a story of your own, share it in the comments below. We're all in this together. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop fighting for the ones you love.